Hello, this is Phil from Faux Wave. I want to talk about a noise album today. Endless Tunnel by Systems. Systems is the moniker of US American noise artist Harrison Phillips, who also runs the label Necessary Fixation. The album's been initially released on Veil Tapes and Necessary Fixation in 2022 and has been re-released via White Centipede Noise in 2023. Harrison Phillips also had a great interview with White Centipede Noise podcast in 2024, talking about all things systems, processes, and recording, and especially Endless Tunnel. But I'm trying to stick with my own impressions and, rather relying too much on the background info provided by the artist, just to, take the sounds presented on that kind of noise release for what my impression of them is, and not knowing too much about how they are being produced. The CD comes in a digipack, slick and slim. It's very silky to the touch. I remember being somewhat surprised when I put the CD out of the foil because I was expecting something more like a rough cardboard. Given that the sound of the album is very crunchy, very dusty almost, and I checked it out before I got the CD. Checked it out digitally, but yeah, it was a nice surprise. It feels nice and silky. Has a very sparse layout. It has 2 pages basically, 2-page digipack. There's some credits and liner notes inside. From a distance, the artwork, it looks a little like a vault door to me. But on a closer look, and including the lower half of the digipack, looks like a tech device almost. Maybe something medical, maybe a centrifuge. Looks like there's movement going on, made visible through long exposure photography or something similar. Maybe it's a scene from a video. I don't know. And the whole scene in the artwork is covered with a high contrast scan of a ripped sheet or cloth. Let's dive right in. The music. The first piece on the album, which is called Endless Tunnel, immediately gives a very airy and murky vibe. The sound sources, or more the layers, are very easily discernible. The sources, not so much. You don't really initially get where the sounds are coming from, but the layers are very easily identifiable. There's a push and pull in intensity. Textures and elements come up and go, drop out, and pick up again. It ramps up without really being overwhelming. Time moves a little differently in that piece, I have the feeling. There's muted scraping going on. Doesn't really grab your attention, but it really adds complexity to the piece. Voices that seem from another dimension creep in, very mumbled voices. The piece has very complex arrangements and movements. There's a cerebral shift halfway through. It doesn't sound distant, but more of a distant memory, the sounds that are coming up there. Heavy breaths creep in from the other side of a door or a dusty window or even underneath your skin. Sounds feel close to the ear. There's sounds of mangled tape going on. Underlying rhythmic textures makes this feel very much alive. The textures are pulsating. The sounds muffle out even more. Old voices, wooden dust. Feels like I'm in alive even before my time. Like really, like time moves a little differently there. Yeah. The last quarter breaks out harsh crunch, but still full. It's almost fulfilling, invigorating, even like makes me feel good. Makes me feel really, really good. Scraping and crunch noises beat you into submission. Really, what once felt organic is mechanical now, and yeah, does something to me like visually in front of my inner eye. I see trains, smog and dirt, sludge in the streets. It's a magnificent piece. Second track, Passing Unnoticed. Like right from the get-go, there's nature sounds versus mechanical manual labor sounds. Insects versus rope sounds and factory sounds. Has a certain outdoor feel. The beginning of the piece. The mangled voices come back, but they seem kind of comforting this time, for me at least. The piece really takes its time, feels cozy almost in the first half. But halfway through, a mid-range drone comes in, gives something like a direction, gets intense without raising the volume too much. Feels like a panoramic picture distorting and warping in front of my very eyes. Factory and railroad tracks grow from the floor. In my inner eyes, everything changes and my mind tries to comprehend, but really, can't keep up. Last quarter of Passing Unnoticed, volume rises, harsh tape noises come in. It mounts in a maelstrom of texture and underlying ghostly movement. It's intensely gradual piece without really breaks and turns, has a starting and an end point. I kind of welcome it after such a texturally deep first track like Endless Tunnel, I gotta say. It almost has attributes of a standard second track, or no, let's call it more musical record, in which artists usually put a straight, less complex piece after a striking, multifaceted opener. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the piece. I really enjoyed the, let's call it, straightforwardness. Cool track. Third piece on the album, Dripping with Strike. It's way more noisy from the get-go. Feels very close, small mechanical movements. It's almost overwhelming considering the slow nature of the previous tracks, given that this track changes its phase completely in the first 2 minutes. It's mechanical, steel rhythms, and blown out noise wall, droning and wailing as a fundament of the piece. Complex noise sprinkled in before it all breaks down 3 minutes in. Leaves us with a mechanical clanking and quiet but deep textures. I feel kind of alone listening to the track. It picks up pace again with bass-heavy distortion pulse before including a full ensemble of scraping, hiss. It's overwhelming, as in this is the first moment, feels like, that's trying to get to you on a hysterical level even. I really appreciate that the CD took its time until now to really get to these heights of emotion and feeling and effect. I can feel panic almost. The clanging of sound is the urge to keep it together, but it's just all so much. It's especially fun to listen to on a higher volume because it's very heavy. Like I can feel the volume on my chest, and at the same time the scraping is kind of subdued so it doesn't hurt you too much. Yeah, it's not trying to hurt you, but subdue you. Wants you to give in and consume you. Another breakdown 2/3 in before the first instance of electronic noise comes in. It's like the piece itself is reaching your psyche now. The music is disorienting, violent, and mean in spirit almost. Before it blows out again, as if you're overcoming every situation the CD throws you into. It's complex noise, stop and start, textures flip and turn, reaching like hands out of a puddle of sludge and grabbing you while you're trudging on. While previous pieces spoke more to my mind and soul, this one felt very physical. I could really feel the force behind the like barrage and melange of sound, which stayed transparent enough to keep up the complexity. It never really gave in to the urge to become one unified wall of sound. So, my general feeling about the album. I would recommend this to someone getting into noise, since the CD never throws you into overly uncomfortable situations and that it just pummels you with sheer volume or hurtful sounds. It takes its time to develop and move. The pieces literally move and expand and pull back again while they are going. It sounds organic, not digital. The distortion has dynamic crunch and it isn't throwing hours of fuzz at you. Mixing wise, it stays in a comfortable lower mid range with occasional blown out lows that really sell the force behind these pieces. It doesn't go into high territory much, which I really enjoy, I gotta say, with my fucked up ears. There's no fatigue setting in, neither in sound nor concept. It inspires to letting your thoughts go and just paint a picture. Overall, the mood is great though, not entirely depressing, but melancholic and, like in the last piece, overwhelming and hard without being tiring. It invokes memories from the past, the good and the bad. As a non-noise historian, this reminds me of late 80s and early 90s Italian and Dutch noise, where the main focus is on deep and multi-layered textures while keeping a sludgy and murky sound aesthetic with occasional outbursts into harsh territory without ever welcoming these specific moments too much. You know, like Corn Plastics, Old Europa Cafe, Minos Habens Records comes to mind. It's very well balanced, and I feel like I'd have loved a fourth track or an outro to Dripping with Sweat to round it out even more, as I don't feel like the record's intent is to leave you devastated, really, and like the end of Dripping with Sweat did. I really enjoy this effort and listen to it on a regular basis. It makes my thoughts wander and it inspires me. The pace is perfect despite of my personal feeling about the ending. It never overstays its welcome, even though it packs 45 minutes of noise that doesn't throw much tonal variation at you. But what it does with its sounds is exciting and sincere, I gotta say. I also like the track listing on the CD medium. I'm sure I'd enjoy the tape as well, but there's something about having 3 similarly long tracks playing an overall runtime of a regular album. Seeing the timer and being able to connect certain moments with times in the pieces, or timestamps in the pieces, I think this serves the record really well, I think. It's a great record. I'm gonna listen to it again and a lot of times. Yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you, Systems, and hope to see you next time.